and I am a senior at Pitzer, and I work in the Office of Admission as an admissions fellow. So that means that I conduct interviews and I also host information sessions. So if you happen to interview with us, you might get me as your interviewer. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am from Dallas, Texas. I major in political studies with an emphasis in food justice and food policy, and I've listed some of the activities that I do on campus here. One that I like to highlight in particular is that I am very passionate about singing in the Pomona College Choir. And being able to sing in the Pomona College Choir is one of the benefits of being at Pitzer and being a part of the Claremont Colleges. You get to experience the resources of all of the 5 C's, which I will talk more about in detail in a minute. Before we get started, I do like to do a very brief land acknowledgement. That's something that we do often at Pitzer. And basically that is just acknowledging who this land belongs to. So at Pitzer in Claremont, we are on Tongva land. Those are one of the indigenous peoples native to this area. And so I like to just acknowledge that that is the group that was here before us and that still exists here today, and to just be mindful of that as we use this beautiful space. And so I encourage all of you, if you have some time later, to look up what indigenous groups live on the land that you are on right now. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. I probably won't be checking the chat throughout the presentation, but I'll have plenty of time at the end to answer any of your questions. Also, if you do feel comfortable, I don't mind if you hop off mute, unmute yourself and ask me a question. This is going to be like a conversation, so if you want to interrupt me, that's totally fine to ask any questions throughout. So who is Pitzer College? So we are a small liberal arts college. We're just over 1,000 students, and we were founded in 1963, so a fairly young college, by Russell K. Pitzer. And Russell K. Pitzer was a philanthropist and also the owner of an orange grove. So our campus is located on an orange grove, so we have lots of citrus trees throughout campus, lots of fruit trees, and we're very proud of our citrus heritage. Our colors are orange and white for this reason, and our logo is an orange tree. We're located in Claremont, California, which is right in the middle of the desert in Southern California and about 35 miles east of LA, which is somewhere between a 45-minute and 2-hour drive, depending on the traffic. In COVID times, it's about a 45-minute drive. And we're also a 50-minute train ride away from Los Angeles. There's a train in downtown Claremont that takes you from downtown Claremont to downtown LA in about 50 minutes. And we also are a member of the Claremont College Consortium, which I will explain more on the next slide. I do have our mission statement up here on this slide, and I'm not going to read it out to you, but I will say that Pitzer is a really mission-driven school and a really fit-driven school, and so the entire culture of our campus really is centered around the 5 core values that are encapsulated in our mission statement. So social responsibility, environmental sustainability, intercultural understanding, interdisciplinary learning, and student engagement. And I'll go through each of those throughout the presentation. So we are a member of the Claremont Colleges, like I mentioned before. We often refer to them as the 5 C's. You'll hear me say that a little bit throughout. And so we have 5 undergraduate colleges that are part of a consortium. So we're all separate institutions, but we share resources. You can take classes at the other schools. We share professors, clubs, sports teams. We also share dining halls. You can eat at any of the dining halls or cafes on any of the campuses. We also share physical buildings on campus, like the library or the student health services, our counseling office, the chaplain's office for religious affairs. So we share a lot, but we are all separate institutions. And I do like to just briefly explain kind of the role of each school within the consortium for you to get a better understanding of what that can be like. Depending on what decade the school was founded, that kind of shapes the culture, the identity of the schools. So Pomona was founded in the late 1800s when a lot of people were moving to Southern California, and the founders saw that there was a need for more higher education institutions. And so they founded Pomona with the intent of creating a consortium of about 8 to 10 schools. Then the next school to come along was Scripps in the 1920s. So the 1920s in the US was women's suffrage movement. So for that reason, Scripps is the historically women's college. Claremont McKenna was founded in the 1940s, so that's right when men were coming home from World War II, and there was the GI Bill, and so they needed a place to go to school. So Claremont Men's College was founded, and so it used to be an all-men's college, and now it's open to all genders. But it's still really focused on, getting folks into the workplace, focus on government, politics, business. Next, we have Harvey Mudd in the 1950s. That's when we had the space race, the Cold War. So Harvey Mudd is the really science and math-focused school. If you go to Harvey Mudd, you actually graduate with a Bachelor's of Science. And traditionally in the other schools, you graduate with a Bachelor's of Arts with the option for a BS. But at Harvey Mudd, everybody graduates with a Bachelor's of Science. And then finally, we have Pitzer in the 1960s. So it's right in the middle of a lot of social justice movements in the United States, women's liberation, civil rights, environmental sustainability. And so for that reason, we have our core values of social responsibility and environmental sustainability, along with our other 3. There actually are 2 graduate institutes. Excuse if you can hear the barking in the background. Those are my dogs. I have 3 dogs who love to bark at the mailman. So we also have 2 graduate institutes that are part of the Claremont College Consortium, Claremont Graduate University and Keck Graduate Institute. But we don't talk about the 7 C's, we just say the 5 C's, because the 2 graduate institutes, we don't interact with them as much. They aren't in our classes, they don't really go to our dining halls, they don't live on campus, they're not in our clubs, so we don't see them as often. They use our library and the student health resources, but that's pretty much it. This right here is a very artistic rendering of our map, but it gives you kind of a sense for what it looks like. So the whole Claremont College Consortium is just 1 square mile, and so you're constantly moving from campus to campus throughout the school day, just because there are no walls or dividers between the colleges. You're free to move about. So each school here is color-coded with Pitzer in our orange in the top right. And then the multicolored space in the middle, those are some shared resources, along with the purple area. Those are also shared resources between the colleges. And then over on the bottom left corner in the pale pink or the pale red, that's our Claremont Village. It's like our downtown area of Claremont. And coming from Dallas, I say downtown very loosely. It's really more kind of like a historic village type feel. It's not like a bustling downtown Los Angeles or New York, but it's a nice place for students to hang out in the evenings and on the weekends. There's restaurants there. There are thrift stores, movie theater, frozen yogurt shops. There's lots of different things to do. Additionally, that train I mentioned that goes from downtown Claremont into downtown Los Angeles is in the Claremont Village. And the village is just about a 15-minute walk from Pitzer. It's about a mile. And so that's a nice resource if you're someone like me who, wants to be able to take advantage of the city. I was going into Los Angeles about maybe twice a month when we were back on campus pre-COVID. All right, so here again are those 5 core values that I mentioned. And we're going to go through each of those one by one now. So we're going to start off with interdisciplinary learning. So at Pitzer, there are over 40 majors for you to choose from. And in addition to the majors that we have specifically at Pitzer, you can also major at any of the other 5Cs. So you will always, if you are a Pitzer student, you will always graduate with a degree from Pitzer. However, you can choose to study topics that we don't offer at Pitzer. So for example, Pitzer doesn't have French. So if you really like French, I take French classes. Some of the other colleges do offer French, and so you can actually major in French using their courses and using the other schools' major requirements, but then still graduate with a degree from Pitzer. So the way we kind of like to think about the 5Cs is you kind of pick your home base. You pick what school really fits you. For Pitzer students, it's that the core values really stand out for them, and those are special to them. And then you get to, use the resources of the other schools. And then about a fourth of our students will complete a double major. We also have the option for a combined major or for a special major. So something kind of unique to Pitzer is you get to create your own major if you so choose. So I have a friend who just really loves foreign languages, and she's really good at foreign languages. And so she's created her own major called Foreign Language Education. So she takes like 3 different foreign languages. She's studied abroad like 2 times, and she's taking courses in linguistics and also in global studies and just learning about foreign language acquisition and intercultural understanding to create her own study of something that she's really interested in. So if you have a particular interest that we don't offer a major for, you can definitely do that. Here's a list of some of our top majors. So of course, with environmental sustainability being one of our core values, we have a lot of environmental analysis majors, political studies majors, but we also do have a lot of human bio majors, as well as economics and media studies. We have really small class sizes at Pitzer, being a small liberal arts college. So we have an average class size of about 16 students and a 10-to-1 student to professor ratio. So you're really getting a personalized classroom experience. Almost all of our classes are going to be completely discussion-based, except for, like, say, intro bio or your, statistics class. Those are going to be just a little bit bigger and a little more of a lecture style. But other than that, basically every class that you're going to be in is discussion based. And you really have a close relationship with both your peers and your professor. And one of the great things about that is not only do I think that enriches the classroom experience, but that also means that you have a lot more connections to resources outside of the classroom. So when professors are looking for research assistants, they're looking to you because you aren't competing with graduate students, and because they have a small pool of students to choose from, they're looking to their classes of like 16 students. And so if you're interested in doing research with a professor as early as your first year, you can do that. They can also put you in contact with folks for internship opportunities and the opportunities to do research with their other colleagues around the colleges. The last thing that I like to highlight about our academic experience is our breadth of knowledge requirements. So that's really just a fancy way of saying that while we want you to be a well-rounded student, we also don't want you just checking off requirements because you have to. We all pay a lot of money to go to these schools, and so we want to make sure that we're really getting the most out of the education and out of the experience. So for example, I am definitely a humanities person. I am not good at math and science, and I applaud those of you who are. We need you, but that's not me. However, we do have a quantitative reasoning and a natural science requirement at Pitzer. So for me, I definitely did not want to sit in like a chemistry class or a physics class for a semester or for a year to fulfill my requirement. But I do have an interest in like food policy and food justice. So I was actually able to take a class called Food, Land, and the Environment for my science credit. And that was where I spent one day a week in lecture, learning about sustainable food systems and how we produce our food in the United States versus globally. And then I spent another day a week at the Pomona College Organic Farm, getting to tend my own plot and learn how they do sustainable farming at a smaller level. And so I was able to fulfill my science credit, but also have it be about something that was actually interesting to me and going towards my interests. Next, we have social responsibility. And I will point out here that all of the photos in this slideshow are actually from our campus. And I really wish that you all could be on campus right now. And I wish I could be on campus right now, because there is just something about the physical aspect of our campus that is so cool, and that really contributes to our identity. So this, what you're looking at right now, is actually one of our dorm buildings called Mead Hall. It's where upperclassmen students tend to live. And all of these murals that you see on this building were all done by students. And new murals are getting done every year. And so if you're, artistic and you like to paint, or you have an idea for a mural, you can definitely have your mural on our campus. And it's a cool way to get to kind of see what's in students' head outside of the classroom. And then also, a lot of the murals on our campus actually have a social justice bend to them. So on the top right of your screen here, you see one of my favorite murals that says "Nonviolence is a weapon of the strong." My first favorite mural was done by my best friend, and it's this huge mural. It's on our social media. You should look it up, of Tarana Burke, who's the woman who started the Me Too movement. And it's absolutely beautiful, and that was done in conjunction with a group on campus called the Pitzer Advocates for Survivors of Sexual Assault and Sexual Violence. And yeah, our murals are just another way that we can really showcase our core values and what they mean to our students. Another way is that the Pitzer community donates over 100,000 hours of community service every year. And that's done on students, free time when they have causes that are really important to them, and they go out and they make those connections and work with organizations. But that's also reflective of time in class that students spend. We have a lot of our curriculum is tailored toward allowing students to engage with the community. So through our Community Engagement Center, which is an office on campus that handles all things engaging with the community, we have multiple different programs for you to choose from. One in particular that I like to highlight, because it was my favorite throughout my time here, is the Inside Out program. That's a national program, and it's not specific to Pitzer, but Pitzer is a strong supporter of it and very active in the Inside Out community. But it's where you have about 10 Pitzer students go with a Pitzer professor to a correctional facility once a week for class, and we hold class inside of a correctional facility in a classroom with 10 incarcerated folks as the other half of our class. And so we get to, not only do you get to, be in a correctional facility, which I think is a really important experience, especially for those of us who live in the United States, because there are so many incarcerated folks in this country. But also you get to learn from people who are not the, traditional college students, and who have really different life experiences than many of us here at Pitzer who, go to a private liberal arts college. And so it really, I think it really enriches your experience for whatever you're learning. And then Pitzer actually just kind of took this program one step further and became the first college in the country to actually offer a pathway to a BA for students who are incarcerated. So the folks who are incarcerated in this local correctional facility, they can actually earn their Bachelor's of Arts degree from Pitzer College while they're in the correctional facility. So we're very proud of that. And then this social responsibility is actually built into our graduation requirements. So we have very limited graduation requirements, and most of our requirements have to do with our core values. So we have a social justice theory and a social responsibility praxis requirement. So social justice theory sounds like what it is. It's, you're in a class and you're theorizing about social justice. So whether that's like this semester I took a class on reproductive rights, or my Inside Out course was political economy of food, learning about our food system and food justice. And then our social responsibility praxis core value is actually going and taking whatever you're learning in the classroom and then applying it to a community engagement project. So whether that's through an Inside Out class or through working with a local women's shelter or through working at the local community garden project, Huerta del Valle, that is right next to our campus. Whatever you're passionate about, whatever interests you, can help you fulfill that requirement. Okay, next we have environmental sustainability. And this, it's kind of hard to tell, but this is a picture of our garden on campus, and it is taken care of by students, by our garden club. And you can pick fruits and veggies and herbs throughout the semester. And then also right next to this garden, which I wish we have a picture of it on the slideshow. I should put one in for next time. But right next to this garden is actually a chicken coop filled with chickens, which is super fun. I actually was realizing yesterday when I gave this presentation that I have never been to a school, personally, I've never attended a school that didn't have farm animals on it. Maybe that's because I'm from Texas, but it's really fun, and the garden club actually takes care of the chickens and they walk the chickens. So if walking chickens is something that's interesting to you, we have that opportunity here. So environmental sustainability is another one of those core values that you can see on our physical campus. So almost half of our buildings are LEED certified, and that is an environmental sustainability rating for architecture and design. So for example, in our dorm rooms, we have solar panels on the roofs, we have a recycled water system, a gray water system. If you open any of the doors or the windows, the air conditioning will turn off to save energy. And we also have living roofs. So there's gardens on the roofs, which are beautiful as well as sustainable. And then our campus doesn't look like the traditional college campus. So we don't have, the lush green quads with the big trees. It's a lot more, desert feel. We are in the middle of the desert, as I mentioned. So lots of cacti, succulents. And that's because 3/4 of the plants on our campus are actually native to this area so that we're not using a lot of water. It rains, maybe like 2 or 3 times throughout the year. But when it does rain, it's absolutely beautiful because the cacti will bloom. And if you haven't seen a cactus bloom, you definitely should look up a picture of it because it is magnificent. You can also see sustainability on our food on our campus. So in our dining hall, we have a composting system that's run by students. We have our local food recovery network chapter. We also contract with a dining service that prioritizes sustainability. So prioritizes fair trade food as well as local food. So trying to get our food from within 100 miles of campus. And finally, I like to highlight our ReRoom program. That is another student-led initiative that really helps to fund all of the sustainability initiatives on campus. So at the end of every semester, if you have things in your dorm that you're no longer going to use, say like a small desk lamp or a chair or a mirror, you can donate it to ReRoom. And then at the beginning of the next semester, ReRoom sells it to students at a very low price. So like $2 for a lamp or something like that. And then the funds from that are used to support the rest of our sustainability initiatives on campus. So for example, any student that wants one gets a drying rack, gets a compost bin for their room. All students get like reusable cups and utensils to try to lessen our footprint. And then I like to talk about the Robert Redford Conservancy, which is like our crown jewel for sustainability. It is a zero net energy certified building. So all of the energy that it uses, it produces. And it's the first of its kind in this area. And it is both a learning space and an event space. So classes are held, there's classrooms, there's labs, there's also, it's connected to the Bernard Field Station, which is used for field work in ecology and biology and other of the sciences. As well as it is an event space. And so we have speakers and we have movie screenings. We have environmental conferences that meet there. So it's really a really great space. And if you're really interested in sustainability and that's your passion, you can be a Robert Redford Fellow and you can help plan all of the events and uses for that space. All right, next we have intercultural understanding. And this is another one of those core values that's really built in as a graduation requirement. So we have two requirements for this core value. So we have the intercultural understanding at the local level and intercultural understanding at the global level. So at the local level, that can be fulfilled by courses such as courses that are about the Tongva peoples, the indigenous group that I mentioned earlier, or taking one on racial justice, something like that. But I really like to spend the bulk of my time talking about intercultural understanding at the global level because that core value is often fulfilled by study abroad. And study abroad is a big part of the Pitzer experience. Over half of our students will study abroad during their time at Pitzer. And actually, the national average for college students studying abroad is 2%. So we are very proud to have 53% of our students go abroad. We have 8 direct run programs that are listed here on the screen, and those are programs where Pitzer students go to another country together and they learn at a Pitzer run facility by Pitzer hired staff members, and then they live in homestays. And then we have a multitude of approved study abroad programs, and those you may be with other Pitzer students or you may not be, and they range from working with like outside study abroad organizations and doing their programs or working with universities in other countries, and you might live in a homestay, you might live in a dorm, you might be completely immersed in a language, or you might not need any kind of foreign language background, but there's basically a program for everybody. In the fall of 2019, I actually went abroad to Rwanda to study post-genocide restoration and peace building and learn about the 1994 genocide that happened there. And that was through an outside study abroad organization. It was one of the approved programs. And I spent the first 2.5 months taking classes, and I lived in a homestay. And then I spent the last month doing an internship at the organization of my choosing. And so I picked Rwanda's Department of Agriculture because of my interest in food policy. And so you can use this study abroad experience as an opportunity to, explore a new discipline, one that you aren't studying in your undergrad, or you can use it as an opportunity to kind of further your studies. So, if you're really interested in medicine, you can go to Costa Rica and do our program that focuses, you work in a clinic for the summer, whatever you're interested in. You can study abroad up to 3 times, 2 semesters and 1 summer. And if 3 times is not enough for you, we also have opportunities to study abroad in your post-grad experience. So we are a national leader in Fulbright fellowships. The Fulbright Fellowship is it's sponsored by the U.S. government, and it's where you spend a year in another country either as an English teaching assistant or doing research. And Pitzer is really passionate about getting their students Fulbright fellowships. We normally have somewhere between like 8 and 10 students go from Pitzer every year on Fulbright. And we actually are so dedicated to it that we even have a class that is solely for filling out your Fulbright application. You take it in the fall of your senior year and you just spend 2 hours once a week just working on your application. So we really want to make sure students are supported in that if they choose that. And then talking about intercultural understanding a little more locally specific to campus, we have a multitude of affinity spaces and identity groups on our campus. So we have the Latinx Student Union, Black Student Union. We even have a mixed identity student union. So really whatever you identify, there's a space on campus for you. All right, now we're at our last core value. I know I've been talking at you a lot, so I appreciate you all for hanging in there. But we are on our last one, so student engagement. And honestly, this might be one of the more important ones, although they're all super important, because this one talks a lot about the decisions that are being made on our college. So we have a shared governance model. So students are on every single standing committee. So, deciding what murals go up on the wall at our aesthetics committee, what professors get hired, what professors get tenured. On our dining hall, there's students on our dining hall committee. There's students on our COVID-19 task force planning for, what are we doing in the midst of all of this craziness. Our racial justice committee, there's students on that. So students are part of every single decision-making process on the campus. And a lot of times student involvement in those committees comes through student senate. So often the folks who are on those committees are student senators. And there are so many ways to get involved with student senate. If you're someone who wants to be involved, you can. It's not like a cutthroat competition where only a select few get to be a part of that. And you can become a representative as early as your first semester if you're really excited about that, or maybe did it in high school and you want to continue. We also have student engagement through our clubs on campus. So there's over 200, and we have clubs. Some are just specific to Pitzer, and then most of them are shared throughout the 5 colleges. So for example, I am a leader of Claremont Students for Animals because I really like animals, and that club is open to any students from any of the 5 colleges. But we have basically any club you can think of. We have like skiing club, surfing club, bread club. We have an environmentalists of color club. There's a biking club. There's really for any interest that you have. Bollywood dance club, ballroom dance club, music club. So there's lots of different ways to get involved. We actually even have a record label. So if you like music, we have a record label that actually has like singles out on iTunes. And that's all of the recording, all of the publishing is funded by the school. So that's a really cool resource to take advantage of as well. And then finally, we see student engagement through student-led initiatives. So students are really passionate about making sure we're holding our administration accountable and that we are making sure that they are really sticking to our core values as well. So we were the first school on the West Coast to divest from fossil fuels, and that was a student-led initiative. We also, in the spring semester, when the pandemic first came to the United States, we did end school early, and then we decided, Pitzer decided to give all students a universal A. So they instituted a universal A policy, which meant that if you passed your classes in that spring semester, you got an A on your transcript. And that was a student-led initiative to kind of account for all of the different disparities and trauma really that was associated with that spring semester. And then we were selected by the Princeton Review as the #1 most politically active student body, and we are very proud of that, and we think that that's a pretty accurate representation of our students. So I'm just going to quickly go over the application process, financial aid, and then it will be question time. So Pitzer has a holistic reading process, which I guarantee every school that you have looked into so far has said that, but we really do try to mean that. So for example, we are test optional, and we have been test optional for a long time. We really want to make sure that you are represented by more than just a number from this test that you took this one time on this one day. And so I really like to highlight our Pitzer supplemental essay because both your Common App essay and your supplemental essay are really key in us getting to know who you are and what's important to you. Particularly with that supplemental essay, I think there's 2 or 3 different prompts to choose from, and they're all about our core values. And as you've seen, this whole presentation was about our core values, so those are really important to us here. And so, I just really want to stress, be yourself and really just let our admissions committee know why those values are important to you, and what role those have in really shaping who you are or who you could be as a Pitzer student. We are a member of the Common Application, so you can find our application there. We require a high school transcript, 1 academic recommendation, and a school report. And then we have some optional pieces of the application here. We know not everyone has access to a counselor, or not everyone has access to a counselor who knows them well, so you aren't required to have that. Same with an interview. That might be really stressful for some people. I promise it's not. As someone who gives interviews, I try to make it really, I try to make everyone feel very comfortable, but they're really just stress-free, about 20 minutes long, just a chance for you to get to tell us a little bit more about yourself in your own words. And then we also have an optional resume, portfolio if you're an artist. And then, again, test scores are optional. And about these optional pieces, they truly are optional. So, if you don't send us your test scores, we aren't going to be like, oh, I bet they did really bad on the test. No, we're not thinking about it like that. So it's if you send us your scores, or if you do an interview, or you send us a counselor recommendation, great. If you think that's going to help paint a better picture of who you are. But if you don't think it does, no need to feel bad about leaving them out. And then over here on the right, we have our application deadlines. Of course, the Early Decision 1 deadline has passed already, but we still have Early Decision 2 and Regular Decision coming up on the 1st of January. Just as a reminder, or as a piece of information for those of you who do not know, Early Decision, both 1 and 2, are binding. So if you decide to apply Early Decision 2, you are telling us that Pitzer is the school that you want to go to, and that if you get accepted, you will go no matter what. So that's really just reserved for people who are positive that Pitzer is the place for them. And then finally, we do have one other way to apply to our school, and that's through our joint medical program. It is a separate application, and we have a program with Western University, which is just 1 highway exit away from Pitzer. And it's a 3-4 program, so you spend 3 years at Pitzer and 4 years at Western, and then you graduate with a Doctor's of Osteopathy. So pretty specific, pretty niche interest, but if that's something that appeals to you, we have that as well. All right, and my last slide here, I promise, before I take questions, is financial aid. So Pitzer meets 100% of students' demonstrated need. So we look at your FAFSA if you're a domestic student, and your ISFA if you are an international student, and as well as the CSS profile. And we figure out how much aid you would need to be able to attend Pitzer based on those forms. And then we will meet 100% of that need if you are accepted to Pitzer. We also have limited merit aid. The max is a $5,000 merit scholarship that's renewable for all 4 years. So really the bulk of your aid is probably going to come from that demonstrated need. If you have any specific financial aid questions, I can certainly attempt to answer them based on my own personal experiences with financial aid, but really the experts are the financial aid office, and so their email is here on the screen as well as on our website. Um, and then there's also some calculators on our website that you can use to try to get an estimate of what your financial aid package might look like if you were to come to Pitzer. So I've got up here my email as well as the general Pitzer admission email and some links to our social media pages. Highly recommend looking at our Instagram, Twitter, especially to our YouTube, which is not up here, but it's just Pitzer College Admissions YouTube, because that's a really good way to get to know us and to get to kind of hear from students and see our campus when we can't all be in person together. So I'll give you just a minute to write any of that down if you'd like. And then I will go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see all of your faces, and I'm going to answer some questions. Alrighty, so you guys can feel free to write in the chat, or you can just go ahead and unmute yourself if you have any questions.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering if you had any information on how like transfer applicants get their financial aid, if it's any different than like what a first year would get, sort of like resources wise. Is it limited or?
Yeah, that is a good question. And you know what? You just stumped me because I don't have the answer to. However, if you want to send me a private message with your email, I can send that to you after this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, of course. Okay, I've got a question in the chat. What are some of your favorite Pitzer traditions? Okay, so this is kind of a tricky question because, to be honest, we're such a young school. I know just 1963, it feels old, but it's young as far as colleges go. And we really aren't like a tradition school that much. However, there are a few things that we do that I like that are really like fairly new traditions. So music is a really big part of Pitzer's campus. We have a lot of artists. And so we have 3 different music festivals that happen every single year on our campus where we bring in artists from around the country as well as have student artists perform. And it's just a really fun time. We bring out food trucks, and there's one called Kahootek, which has been going on for like 30 years. And all of the Claremont community members come, and there's this one man who's like, I don't know, I think he's like 70 years old, and he's come every single year, and he goes to the front of the dance floor, and he dances in front of everyone, and it's so sweet. And people bring their dogs out. It's just a really nice time. And that music festival is more for like alternative, kind of like indie music, rock. And then we have Rockabilly, which is totally for rock. And that's hosted by the Latinx Student Union. And that's where actually like old vintage cars that are like really decked out, like the muscle cars, they will like parade around our campus, and local artisans will bring like set up shops in our quad area, and we have food trucks for that. And then my favorite one is called Ono, and it stands for One Night Only, and it particularly focuses on artists of color, particularly Black students and Black artists. It's hosted by the Black Student Union, and it's so fun. It's like an R&B music festival, and they bring in, like, I don't know if you guys have heard of Flo Milli, but yeah, Flo Milli was supposed to come, and then coronavirus came, so that was unfortunate. But we were supposed to have Flo Milli last year. But it's so nice, and they like make t-shirts for it every year. They have like a bounce house. It's really really lively, exciting, and you get to connect with students from the other 5 Cs. So that is my favorite Pitzer tradition. I'd say that's one of the few traditions that we have. Okay, I've got another question in the chat. What made you choose Pitzer over the other colleges you looked at? Great question. So I like full disclosure, I really only applied to schools in Southern California because I wanted to leave Texas and experience something new. But I wanted to stay in warm weather. So that's kind of what took me to Southern California. Pitzer, what really drew me to Pitzer were the core values. And I know I sound like a broken record at this point saying that, but like I just, like for me, particularly environmental sustainability was really important. I was kind of seen as like the hippie girl in my Texas city. Um, and so I really wanted to be in a place where other people were excited about like making change in the world and were excited about like talking about difficult topics and really leaning into the uncomfortable, into the hard conversations that we have politically and socially. And also I wanted to be in a place where I was really going to be pushed. And Pitzer 100% has done that for me. I like thought I kind of had everything figured out about how I was going to, change the world and make my mark on the world. And I came to Pitzer and was like, oh, I forgot to include this perspective and I forgot to think about this and this and this, and this complicates my thought about that. And I really love that the Pitzer community really pushes each other to grow in those ways. And so that's been really exciting. And I did apply early decision to Pitzer too. I totally fell in love. And yeah, I haven't looked back since. Okay, another question. How much does early decision to help your chances of getting in? Good question. So technically it doesn't, like technically applying early decision or early decision two doesn't really affect your chances because, what our admissions counselors will always tell you is, if you weren't going to get in regular decision, you probably aren't going to get in early decision either. Like, it's not like because you applied early decision, you will have gotten in. Less students apply during early decision. So when they're looking at your application, it's a smaller pool of students. Additionally, the people who end up applying early decision typically really, I mean, they love the school. I mean, they are saying that if they don't go to Pitzer, or they're saying that if they get into Pitzer, they are definitely going to go. And so that almost kind of makes it a little more difficult, right? Because now you're in a pool with a bunch of students who like really, really love Pitzer and who are like really showing they love Pitzer. At the same time though, applying ED also shows the admissions team that you really love Pitzer. And, we do value demonstrated interest. Of course, it's not it's not above everything else, but if you're applying early decision and you truly love Pitzer and you like the core values, then that definitely gives you a better chance of getting in. So it technically doesn't, but I guess it could kind of. I know that wasn't a perfect answer, but hopefully that was helpful in some way. Okay, got another one. How would you describe the energy among students? Is it competitive or chill? Good question. That's a hard one because there's a wide range of Pitzer students. So there's definitely like the, laid back, like hippie, woodsy, crunchy granola kind. And I say that with love because those are like my best friends. But I'm just saying that there is definitely that kind of person. And then there's me who's like type A personality. Like I want to, I love the city and I like want to go. And I'm, very, I would say that I'm competitive in all things except for academics. I like collaboration in the classroom. So there's a wide range, but I will say, at least academically speaking, it's very collaborative, not competitive at all. Very rigorous. And I would say that like we all really care about school and what we're learning, especially because the way that we learn here at Pitzer, a lot of it is like not just operating within an academic vacuum. We're very much focused on, okay, how do we take what we learn in the classroom and go do something with this and apply this to the actual, real world. And so everyone really cares about what we're learning, but it's a very collaborative classroom. There's no like rankings and trying to figure out who got this test score and that test score. Like it's everyone just trying to learn. Okay, next one. Did you make the most of your friends from Pitzer? Excuse me. Did you make most of your friends from Pitzer or from the other colleges too? Um, I'm trying to think. So my best friend is from Pitzer because we met on our orientation adventure trip, which is super fun. You spend 4 days doing either like backpacking, surfing, hiking, um, rowing. What you can do like an outdoorsy beach camping trip, or you can do what I did, which I call them wimpy trips, which isn't fair, but I'm calling myself wimpy because I can't sleep outside. Where you sleep in a dorm for 3 nights, but then you spend 4 days doing day trips into LA, visiting different restaurants and museums. Um, Super fun. You get acquainted with the city. But I met my best friend on that trip, and so she's from Pitzer. But I'd say most of my friends, well, it's a mix. I'd say my other closest friends don't go to Pitzer. That's because I spend so much time at Pomona doing music. I'm a voice student and I also sing in the choir. And so I spend like, I don't know, I was going to and from Pomona and Pitzer like 3 to 4 times a day for lessons and for using practice rooms and stuff like that. So I think it really depends on kind of where you're taking most of your classes. Too, especially if you're majoring at another college. If you like, want to major in French and you like, then you're gonna have a lot of classes at Scripps, Claremont McKenna, and Pomona because those are 3 schools with French. And so you're gonna have a lot of friends from there probably. But yeah, it depends. Also, if you play sports, that changes things too. Um, but I have a mix, but my best friend's from Pitzer. Any other questions? Oh, what are the dorms like at Pitzer? Good question. I love this. They're like resort. If you haven't seen photos of the first year dorms, you should definitely look them up. So the first year dorms, there's 3 buildings in like a U shape, and they are surrounding a pool. And then they overlook the mountains. And so, I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And they're like motel style, which doesn't sound appealing. But what I mean by that is when you open the door to your room to go out of your room, you're outside on a balcony. So there's not like an inside dorm building that you're walking down the hallway or anything. You're really connected to the outdoors, and most people will like leave their doors open during the day to let the sun in and to just like be able to socialize with people throughout the day. Um, and then the upperclassmen dorms they're brand new. They were actually built in 2015. They're so nice. I really miss living on campus. And there's kitchens you can use. There's living rooms you can use. I feel like TVs. My friends and I would watch The Bachelor on the living room TVs. There's study rooms within the dorms. So there's and you are guaranteed housing for all 4 years. And about 97% of students will live on campus for all 4 years. So it's really like community based, and people love to be on campus because that's where everything happens. It's where the heart of the campus is. Um, okay, I've got 2 more questions. Let's see. What has your experience been in student-faculty relationships? Do you feel supported by the faculty? Yes, yes, yes. It's so cute, I think, because you really feel the small town vibes when you're engaging with your professors. Students are like the babysitters for professors' children, and we get invited to professors' houses for just like socializing and for like kind of extending the classroom. Like my African studies professor last year invited us all over to his house for dinner and for wine, and we got to talk to his other African scholar friend about her travels around the world. And it's just a really like the professors really care about you as a person because they get to know you. Um, and all professors have 4 hours. They have to have at least 4 hours of office hours throughout this week. Excuse me, throughout the week, each week. And that's time where they're just sitting in their office and waiting for you to come in and talk to them. And unless it's exam season or they have a big paper due for their students soon, they're pretty much just sitting in there and waiting. And so you definitely have access. Professors are also really accommodating with meeting you like outside of those arranged times. So like we're technically on break right now, but I am writing a thesis for next semester. And I emailed one of my professors freaking out about a thesis proposal that I have due next week. And I was like, can you meet me sometime soon? And she's like, yes, this morning. Like, can you meet in 20 minutes? And I was like, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Even though we're technically like on break right now and she's not working anymore. So yeah, we have really, really good relationships with professors. Okay, is there anything you would change about Pitzer if you could, and or anything that surprised you when you got there that you weren't expecting? Um, yes, so surprised me when I got there that I wasn't expecting the diversity of thought. I came in with a really preconceived notion of what like going to a school that values social responsibility and environmental sustainability would look like. I was like, oh, everyone's going to think this certain way or everyone's going to, vote this certain way. And that was not the case at all. There's a really like wide range of just opinions about how to change the world and opinions about what intercultural understanding means or what student engagement means. What that means to me could mean something different to somebody else. So that was a pleasant surprise, but definitely something that I had to kind of get used to in a really good way and just like be more cognizant of all the different backgrounds people come from and experiences they have. Something I would change about Pitzer, yes. So I absolutely love how much power students have to really push administration and to make sure that we are really sticking to our core values and doing what's best for the students. But ultimately, our administration, there's a lot of bureaucracy and it is, still a predominantly white institution and there are some, outdated, I would say, practices. And so sometimes it's frustrating that we as students have to advocate for ourselves, though we have that option and I'm glad we have that voice. It's sometimes frustrating to kind of feel like that burden is on us when we're students and we're trying to learn and we're trying to grow ourselves. And then we have to go to our administration and go, hey, I think you guys missed something. I think you guys need to learn a little bit. It's like, why do we have to tell you that? And so that can be annoying and I wish we didn't have to do that. But I'm grateful to be in a community where people want to do that and where they listen to us. Does Pitzer take AP credits? Yes, we do take AP credits. I believe you can bring up to 3 or 4, one of the two. It's on our website for sure. I think it's 3. I think you can bring over 3 AP credits. And there are a few like restrictions. So for example, like if you are a political studies major and you took AP Gov, you can't have that count as towards your major requirement. You can have that count as like one of your credits that you use to graduate, but it can't be part of your major requirements. Do students get lots of opportunities to study abroad? Yes, you can study abroad up to 3 times. We have over 60 programs. Yes, study abroad is a big part. I see that we are at the hour mark, so definitely want to be respectful of everybody's time. I really appreciate you all joining me, and I hope that you learned something new. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any more questions, and I will stay on for another minute or 2 in case anyone else has some lingering questions. But thank you all so much for joining me, and have a great rest of your day.